Hey, it's Dan Zimmerman. Welcome to Illustrate to Educate. Don't forget to subscribe for weekly objective videos on topics that matter. Have you ever wondered what is the difference between socialism and communism? In this video, we will look at the similarities and differences between these economic and political theories. Let's first take a look at where these two originated. During the Industrial Revolution from 1760 to 1840, there were extreme economic and social changes caused by the struggles of the working class. The economic inequality between workers and the factory owners continued to grow. This is what spawned early socialist thinkers who presented models for reorganizing society along the lines of cooperation and community. Most notably came Karl Marx, the German political philosopher and economist who would become one of the most influential socialist thinkers in history. Along with Friedrich Engels, he published what was called the Communist Manifesto in 1848. He argued that all of history was a history of class struggles and that the working class or the proletariat would inevitably triumph over the capital class or the bourgeoisie and would win control over the means of production, forever erasing all classes. This is where communism comes into play, which is sometimes referred to as revolutionary socialism. It came to be defined by Marx's theories taken to an extreme. In fact, Marxists often refer to socialism as the first necessary step on the way from capitalism to communism. Marx and Engels themselves didn't consistently or clearly differentiate communism from socialism, which is why there continues to be confusion between the two terms. Now, let's define what socialism is. Pure socialism is an economic system under which each individual, through a democratically elected government, is given an equal share of the four factors of economic production: labor, entrepreneurship, capital goods, and natural resources. In essence, socialism is based on the assumption that all people naturally want to cooperate, but cannot because of the competitive nature of capitalism. In socialism, the government employs centralized planning to allocate resources based on both the needs of the individual and society as a whole. Economic output is distributed according to each individual's ability and level of contribution. Now that we've defined what socialism is, let's define what communism is. Pure communism is an economic, political, and social system in which most or all property and resources are collectively owned by a class-free society rather than by individual citizens. According to Karl Marx, pure communism results in a society in which all people are equal and there is no need for money or the accumulation of individual wealth. There is no private ownership of economic resources, with a central government controlling all facets of production. Economic output is distributed according to the needs of the people. Under pure communism, the central government provides the people with all basic necessities such as food, housing, education, and medical care, thus allowing the people to share equally from the results of collective labor. Now that we've defined socialism and communism, we can look at some of the bigger similarities between the two. Number one, both grew out of the opposition of unfair treatment of workers by wealthy businesses during the Industrial Revolution. Number two, both assume that all goods and services will be produced by the government-controlled institutions or collective organizations rather than by privately owned businesses. And number three, the central government is mainly responsible for all aspects of economic planning, including matters of supply and demand. Next, let's look at the main differences between the two. First, socialism is based on the premise that people will be compensated based on their level of individual contribution to the economy. Effort and innovation are thus rewarded under socialism. However, under communism, the people are compensated for based on what the government considers are their needs by providing most or all food, clothing, housing, and other necessities. Second, under socialism, individuals can own property, but industrial production, or the chief means of generating wealth, is communally owned and managed by a democratically elected government. Whereas under communism, there is no such thing as private property. All property is communally owned, and each person receives a portion based on what they need, and the government controls all aspects of economic production. The last key difference is the means of achieving them. Socialism seeks change and reform through democratic processes within the existing social and political structure, but in communism, a violent revolution in which workers rise up against the middle class and upper class is seen as an inevitable part of achieving a pure communist state. Since democratic socialism is more of what we see today, let's look briefly at what it is. Democratic socialism is an economic, social, and political ideology. It supports that both society and the economy should be run democratically and should be dedicated to meeting the needs of the people as a whole, rather than encouraging individual prosperity as in capitalism. Other goals include government distribution of universally used services such as utilities, mass transit, and healthcare, while consumer goods should be distributed by a capitalist free market. A moderate version advocates for a mixture of socialist and capitalist control of all means of economic production, supplemented by extensive social welfare programs. Does pure socialism or communism exist now? Today, most countries generally considered socialist, such as Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, are not socialist countries and are closely aligned with policies of democratic socialism. All three countries do provide free healthcare, education, and lifetime retirement income, as well as having very successful capitalist sectors. Today, varying degrees of communism exist in China, Cuba, North Korea, Laos, and Vietnam, although in reality, a purely communist state has never existed. Such countries can be classified as communist because in all of them, the government controls nearly all aspects of the economic and political system, but none of them have fully achieved the elimination of personal property, money, and class systems that the communist ideology requires. Did you enjoy this video comparing socialism and communism? Hopefully it gave you a good introduction of the similarities and differences between the two. Please like and share the video, subscribe to Illustrate to Educate, and comment on your thoughts about socialism and communism, and don't forget to check out some of my other videos to the right.